Good evening and welcome. Tonight we'll be going over more of this book called History of the World Map by Map. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Good to have you here. I go into this book totally blind because normally I read everything that I read on my channel well in advance just to rehearse it. I have not done so with this book. All I've read are the titles of the maps that we're going to look at tonight. I don't even know what I'm going to be titling tonight's video because I haven't read these maps yet. Obviously, you know by now. And this is much more laid back, fun, almost a kind of chit chat. Let's explore and hang out together. So it's a little more fun and relaxed than usual. So with that being said, we are getting into some American history, starting with the Civil War. Bum, 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 bum. Let's see, looks like we're starting up here on this box. Oh, that's neat. I just noticed this map. The reason that they used blue and gray colors to show the North and the South is that those were the colors that the soldiers wore, like these exact shades. It's pretty neat. Clever for them. It says the War in the East, April 1861 to July 1863. In April 1861, Confederate soldiers attacked the U.S. garrison at Fort Sumter. In response, Lincoln called out the militia, and the Civil War began. An early Union victory at Manassas on July 1861 gave way to defeats to superior Confederate forces at Fredericksburg and the Wilderness. Union attempts to reach the Confederate capital at Richmond were also thwarted. Under General Robert E. Lee, the Confederates pushed into Union territory in Pennsylvania, but were defeated at Gettysburg and retreated to Virginia. I guess this doesn't really give you a backstory. I'm sure it does over here. How the debate between slavery got so heated that the southern states that were pro-slavery decided to create their own country. And in the American Constitution, once you are in the United States, you are not allowed to leave. That is written in the Constitution. So they declared a civil war. And that's what happened. Let's read about the war in the West, June 1861 to July 1863. The Union Army under General Ulysses S. Grant won a victory at Shiloh in April 1862. Before seizing key points on the Mississippi, Tennessee, and Cumberland rivers, and moving south to take Vicksburg, July 1863. After a 6-week siege, New Orleans and the Confederate forts at the mouth of the Mississippi had also fallen. The Union had succeeded in splitting the Confederacy in two. Wow. Let's take a look at the map of these battles here. You can see the Battle of Williamsburg is depicted down here. And you can see the blue and the gray there as well. Let's go top down on this map and see what we've got here. This says July 1st to 3rd, 1863, which is, of course, Gettysburg. Probably the most famous battle on American soil in any war. Not that there were many wars on American soil. There were 3 that I can think of. The defeat at Gettysburg ends Confederate attempts to take the war into Union territory. There's Harper's Ferry. Very famous battle there. If I remember, I'll link up there and I'll make a note of it. My history magazine about Harriet Tubman. Let me just write Harriet on my notes real quick. Who helped orchestrate the battle at Harper's Ferry. Harriet, okay. So I won't forget. Let me timestamp it. What am I at? 5 minutes, okay. Ish. Okay. Cool. I didn't know a lot about that battle until I read that article, and it was really interesting. I didn't realize how involved she had been in that battle. let's see, we've got Manassas, Fredericksburg, 7 Days Battles, Fort Monroe, Williamsburg, Fort Hatteras, Fort Macon. Up here, there's Bull Run, Antietam, which Antietam was the deadliest battle in the Civil War. The Wilderness, Staunton, Chancellorsville, all kinds. We've got on April 12th, 1861, attack on Fort Sumter by Confederate troops sparks the Civil War. There's the fort there. February 17th, 1862, Union Navy establishes base at Port Royal and begins blockade of Confederate states. You can see this blockade. This must be the blockade. Guarding the shore there so that no goods can come in or out, so that they could try to starve out the Confederates, which really just led to a lot of black market dealings. What was it when I was doing Jamaica? How the economy of Jamaica thrived at this time off of the black market of people getting stuff up to Florida. Here it says on May 1st, 1862, the Union fleet captured New Orleans. Just right there. You can see Fort Madison right here. Port Madison. There's another big yellow fort. Where's the key that tells me what it's over here? Confederate forts are yellow. Okay. All kinds of battles. Vicksburg City besieged May 19th to July 4th, 1863. Goodness. Yeah, it was a hotbed. And what's this? What are these? Union front line. Wow. So the red was where the Union was stationed by December 1863, according to the key over here. All this way. And down here as well. Guarding the coast and stealing these forts. Let's see what happened next. It went downhill very rapidly, for the South at least. Number 3, General Sherman's advance. I have a story about this, actually. Let's read about it first. July to December 1864. In 1864, the Union targeted Atlanta, an important Confederate rail and commercial center, which General William Sherman besieged from July 1864 to capture in September. Its capture in September boosted the North's morale and helped win Lincoln a second term in office. Sherman then marched south to Savannah and the sea, operating deep in enemy territory without supply lines and destroying Confederate infrastructure, industry, and property as he went. You can see the destruction is shown by these explosions here. If you've seen Gone with the Wind, the first half of the movie is about this event, Sherman's march on Atlanta. But also my fun story is that my maternal grandma grew up in Hannibal, Missouri. And one day, I don't know what happened, but she went under her porch and she found this stack of letters. And they were from 1864, and they were from a soldier named John McMasters, who we are not related to in any way. It was the previous owner had left these behind. John McMasters was writing to his mom about how he was marching down to Atlanta. And as you're reading these letters in this beautiful handwriting, of course, you realize that he was part of Sherman's march. And thankfully his last letter was about meeting her at the train station because he was going home. So he made it through. But yeah, crazy history there. That she had just found these letters from the Civil War tucked under her porch in Missouri. But yeah, Sherman's March on Atlanta. Gone with the Wind did a great job depicting it, I think. It's like my favorite part of the movie. The end of the war is from February 1864 to April 1865. During 1864, General Grant was put in command of all Union armies. After a series of bloody battles, he forced General Lee's Confederate army into defensive positions around Richmond and Petersburg. On April 9th, 1865, Lee fled to Appomattox and surrendered. Soon after, 89,000 Confederate soldiers surrendered at Bennett House, North Carolina, effectively bringing the war to an end. Bennett House is shown by this symbol, and it's up here. There's a little tag. April 26, 1865, Confederates surrender at Bennett House. I need to bring this closer because this blue with black writing is very hard to read at this angle. Let's come closer and see what we've got. There's Nashville, it looks like. There we are. December 15th to 16th, 1864, the Battle of Nashville destroys Confederate Army in the West. Is it just me or is that sword purple? Are there purple swords? Oh, there is. Inconclusive battle? Is that what that means? Yeah, inconclusive. Interesting. April 9th, 1865 is when Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse. And then other battles, or these are surrender points, Spotsylvania Courthouse. Oh, that's the Siege of Petersburg here, June 20th. Down here it says November and December 1864, Sherman's troops pillage and burn much of Georgia on the march to the sea. Yet John did not talk much about the destruction. He mainly talked about how his feet hurt and how he was very hungry all the time. But yeah, it's like you wouldn't have even know he was on the march to the sea if he hadn't mentioned marching all day toward Atlanta. And then his letters just skip the battle and he's like, well, we did it. The war's over, coming home. Science and innovation. Let's see what else the United States is getting up to at this time of its history. Expansion of the U.S., this map is called. Let's see what this is about. Let me do this thing. I think it's easier for all of us. Immigration and agricultural development, 1860 to 1920. Millions of immigrants worked in U.S. industrial towns and cities, but many brought agricultural skills and helped transform land management in the U.S. All right, quick break. I had to confiscate a cat toy, which it is a golf ball. He loves golf balls. He loves anything he can bat around. And golf balls, I guess, are the perfect size, weight, and he can't eat it, so. But it's very loud right now. I had to take away the golf ball. Sorry, kitty cat. Okay. Where were we? Russian Mennonites, Anabaptist Christians of German Dutch descent, for example, began to cultivate wheat in the prairie lands of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, while German settlers were among the first to cultivate oranges in California. Wow. Migrants also moved between the U.S. and Canada. Wow. You never really think about the first to bring oranges to California. It's so iconic in Southern California, the oranges. All right, we've got cotton shown by this little cotton, little bushel, whatever you'd call it. Down here, cotton. We have timber production. Timber. Oh, that's it. Timber right here. I guess that's Idaho. That's where I live now. Except I'm more north than that. Immigration to the U.S. from 1860 to 1920. I can see over here in my old hometown of San Francisco, there's the Chinese coming in there. We've got arrow coming this way into New Orleans, and of course New York City very famously. Wheat production circa 1900. Oops, I forgot. Immigration to Canada is over here. So people actually moving from the U.S. to Canada, over to Halifax, and then coming in from Europe to Quebec. All right, wheat production in the 1900s, riveting topic. 19 to 96 tons per square mile is the green, and over 96 tons is the bluish purple here. Oh, I see. It's the colors there. Okay. So the green is wheat production, but these gaps here is like major wheat production. Major wheat production. Okay, I see now. I see now. I guess in the U.S. as well. In the U.S., in California, and the West Coast here. Oregon and Washington and Idaho. Alright. Next is the cattle drives. Cowboy times. 1860 to 1886. As demand for beef grew and prices rose in the 1860s, Texan herders began to drive their cattle on long trails north to Denver and into Kansas, where they were loaded onto trains and shipped to Chicago's burgeoning meat packing industry. By 1887, beef prices had dropped to one half of their peak. At this point, hit by the overgrazing of the open plains and a particularly harsh winter in 1886 to 1887, the industry collapsed, and many of the vast cattle ranges were enclosed by homesteaders. So cattle ranching shown by this little cow here, and we can trace their little purple trail there, and you can see that they are all over this area here. Cows, 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 cows. And their trails going up, 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 up. From Texas. Industrialization. 1870 to 1960. After the Civil War, the U.S. rapidly industrialized, increasing factory output almost tenfold between 1870 and 1916. Industry boomed in the Northeast, where coal and iron were easily accessible via the growing railroad network, which extended to cities in neighboring Canada. Banking, finance, and new inventions such as the typewriter and electric light spawned businesses, creating many tycoons. So oil production, shown by this little drop, and industrial cities and railroads are the green. I see. I was wondering what those green lines were. They're railroads. So we can see the industrial cities. We have Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Salt Lake City, Denver, Austin and Houston, New Orleans, Pensacola, Birmingham, Atlanta. What is that? Kansas City, Lincoln, Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis. My mouth really wanted to say Massachusetts, and I had to stop it. North Bay, and of course all around the Great Lakes. We won't list them all. Louisville, Indianapolis, all the way up into Boston and Quebec up there. So on and so forth. Oil, you can see down here in Texas. Any other oil? I don't think so. I think it's just mainly this area here. And of course the railroad stretching across the United States, the Transcontinental Railroad right here, going from coast to coast. And the urbanization and population growth from 1860 to 1920. There we go. Between 1860 and 1920, the population of the U.S. grew from 29 million to 106 million. This drove rapid urbanization as immigrants and rural people moved to the cities. In 1860, only 20% of the population lived in urban areas, but by 1920 it was nearer 50%. City life was cramped and competitive. Discontent and tensions between different groups often erupted into violence. So, urban populations, if it's more than 60% populated, it's red, and then it gets lighter into yellow for less than 20%. So you can see the New Mexico, Nevada, the Dakotas, Arkansas, Mississippi, and the Carolinas aren't heavily populated, but look at California. We got post-gold rush times with the booming of San Francisco and the farming industry. And of course we have Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New Jersey there, looks like Long Island might be right there for New York City. I can't tell. But yeah. Neat little map. Oh, you can see the Transcontinental Railroad being built right here. They're laying down the tracks. Neat. Territorial expansion. Yeah, you can see just how the 48 states grew and grew farther and farther west. Anyway, let's see this last map. This one I'm interested about because it's about South America. You thought when I said America, we were just talking about the United States. Nope, we're talking about Latin America as well. Let's see, where's the first box? Way down here. I hate when it's long. Thanks, South America, for being so long. The Paraguayan War. Oh, this is an interesting. This was a wild one. 1864 to 1870. In 1864, Paraguay was pitted against an alliance of Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay set on conquest. Outnumbered 10-1, Paraguay's army was destroyed at the Battle of Lomas Valentinas in 1868. Guerrilla war rumbled on until 1870, but ultimately Paraguay lost around 54,000 square miles of territory and around half its population in the conflict. So you can see here how big Paraguay used to be. Now, of course, that's mainly part of Brazil and Argentina. You can't really see the modern borders, but Paraguay's in there. All right, then we have the War of the Pacific. Can I get this in the shot? Barely. Okay, War of the Pacific. 1879 to 1883. In 1879, Bolivia, Chile, and Peru went to war over control of the Atacama Desert's nitrate deposits. Chile landed an army at Antofagasta, taking the Bolivian coastline and the southern provinces of Peru. Chilean troops then sailed to attack Lima, and the city was occupied by a Chilean force between 1881 and 1884. So Chile before is this dark olive green, and you can see just how long it stretched all the way down to Tierra del Fuego. Gained from Bolivia. So Chile stole this part from Bolivia, taking away their coastline, and Chile got this part of Peru. Conquered by Chile. What? Where is this? Confused. I only see 3 colors and there's 4 on here. And big battles. I think I'll link my video on Antofagasta up here. Let me write that down. Antofagasta. Okay. So I won't forget. Talk more about the War of the Pacific in those videos. I don't understand this key. Do you see? Look at this. Oh, let me hike this up. Okay. Let's see how there's like olive green, lime green, yellow green, and then light green. So there's olive green, lime green, this yellowy green. But then where's the other one? I don't see it at all. Okay. I'm very confused. Let's read about the Mexican Revolution. Put this here very carefully. Very carefully prop this up. Okay. The Mexican Revolution, 1910 to 1917. In 1910, Francisco Madero challenged Mexico's dictator for the presidency and called for revolution. Armies under Pascual Orozco, Pancho Villa, and Emiliano Zapata all attacked government positions. Successive presidents failed to pacify the country, and the U.S. intervened militarily. A new constitution was agreed on in 1917, and Venustiano Carranza became president. Areas of leadership here. I suppose I'll also link my history magazine about Zapata up there as well. Let me make a note. Zapata. Zapata. What's my timestamp here? I can't see because the book's covering up my time. Okay. Careful. There we go. Okay. Lots of links for you guys to explore some more formally reading stuff, not so informal. So we have the areas of Carranza, Pancho Villa, Zapata, and Madero up here in Mexico. Let's take a look. Oh. Yellow is Carranza. You can see most of the desert, Sonora, Chihuahua. Pancho Villa has Coahuila. And then down here is Zapata. And then where's Madero's orange? Oh, Madero's right there. U.S.-Mexican clashes are shown by the swords here. And major incidents are up with these fists, which I'm sure we're going to read about in the boxes later. And this is the U.S. expedition shown here. And right here. Down to Veracruz. Exports and investment. Let's see what this is about. Careful. There we go. Make sure it's not going to flop over on me. Export and investment, 1850 to 1920. As the world entered a second phase of industrialization at the end of the 19th century, South America experienced a series of export booms in nitrates, rubber, copper, and tin. South America also became a major coffee producer, and British investment in the region's railways and ports made wheat and beef viable export products. Let's see. Here we go. Major ports are shown by these cranes. So we have Lima. We have Rio, Sao Paulo, Montevideo, Bahia Blanca there, Buenos Aires, of course, and way up here we've got Pará, and then Guayaquil. I don't see any others. Oh no, Valparaiso down there. Beef is of course going to be in Uruguay and Argentina. You see cows. Nitrates would be over here in the desert. It's up here in Peru. Rubber is going to be in Brazil. So here in the interior, in the Amazon, around Manaus. Tin, we've got tin near La Paz. Any other tin? There's some more cows up here. And of course, coffee here in Brazil. Of course, Brazil is very famous for its coffee. And we've got, of course, Colombia and Venezuela. Of course, Colombian coffee. I think that's my sister's favorite. She likes Colombian coffee. And Venezuela as well. I'll have to ask her. I think the coffee she drinks is from Colombia. We have, is that everything? Yeah, okay. Central America, the Caribbean, and the United States, 1895 to 1920. In 1898, the Spanish-American War finally ended Spanish rule in Latin America. Prefaced by America's support for Cuba's revolt against Spain in 1895, the war left America in possession of Cuba and Puerto Rico and secured its influence in the Caribbean and Central America. The U.S. then intervened across the region in Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, the Dominican Republic, and crucially, Panama. Oh, yes. Let's read this map and see what we're talking about. Starting up in Mexico by the looks of it. Spring 1911, the city of El Paso seized by revolutionary forces. Madero declared president. I'll go like this. 1910. While in prison after being arrested for encouraging rebellion, Francisco Madero calls for a revolt. They're in San Antonio. 1916, the Mexican government troops defeat the U.S. forces there in Carrizal. April 1915, Villa defeated in a bloody battle. And in 1940, that's in Celaya. 1914, landing of U.S. Marines sent by President Wilson in Veracruz. February 1913, military coup. Victoriano Huerta assumes presidency with U.S. approval, and Madero was assassinated. And in August 1914, this is all in Mexico City, of course, Carranza declares himself president despite Villa's objections. In 1912 to 1925, U.S. occupation and financial supervision in Nicaragua. And from 1903 to 1939, Panama was a U.S. protectorate, mainly to protect the canal. Here it talks about it. 1914. Completion of Panama Canal gives America control of fastest trade route between Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. Haiti's occupied by the U.S. 1915-1934. Puerto Rico's annexed in 1898. That's for the little guys down here. 1797, Trinidad's given to Britain. 1803, British Guiana to Britain. And French Guiana to France in 1817. All right, let's get down into the events down here. Looks like we're starting in Manaus up here. 1890 to 1920, Manaus flourishes as center of rubber boom in Amazon region. Let's start with the Pacific coast. There we go. 1881, 1884, Lima and Callao occupied by Chilean forces. 1884, Tacna and Arica conquered by Chile. 1929, Tacna area awarded to Peru and Arica area to Chile. You know what, that one timestamp? I'm going to make it just Chile, not Antofagasta, because we're talking about Arica as well. I've already done a video on Arica. And Ancon. October 20th, 1883, Peru and Chile signed the Treaty of Ancon. Tarapacá area ceded to Chile. October 8th, 1879, sinking of a Peruvian ironclad, the Huáscar, gives Chile control of the sea. February 14th, 1879, Chilean armed forces occupy Antofagasta. 1878, Bolivia demands more taxes from the Chilean Antofagasta Nitrate Company working in the Atacama. Yes, drama in South America at this time. The solution was always war. But it was mainly over borders and who got rights to what resource, definitely the nitrate was the war in the Pacific. But yes, the main issue was that the borders of South America kind of looked like this, where it was just kind of this nebulous blob of regions. There were no definitive lines in South America at this time, so places overlapped and led to a lot of hostility. I think Uruguay was the only one that had an actual border because they declared independence from Brazil, Argentina, all of the above. They declared independence, period. But yeah, that was the main issue, and it's still kind of an issue today up in Venezuela and Guyana and other parts of South America, but that's the biggest one. Here it says 1870 to 1914. Tin becomes Bolivia's main export. December 27th, 1865, Paraguayans invade Brazil and attack the Brazilian garrison at Nova Coimbra Fort. December 21st to 22nd, 1868 was the Battle of Lomas Valentinas that changed Paraguay forever. Let's make sure you can still see and that the book won't collapse on my hands, because that's actually happened sometimes filming this. Not this video, but other videos with this book. 1870 to 1914, Brazil's economy becomes heavily dependent on coffee exports. April 1866, Argentina's President Mitre invades southwest Paraguay. June 11th, 1865, the Brazilian Navy defeats Paraguayan flotilla in Battle of, make sure I get this right, Riachuelo, on the Parana River near Corrientes. 1864, work begins on development of Buenos Aires port, funded by the British Barings Bank. And 1850 to 1914, Argentina's largely British-built railways make large-scale beef exports possible, changing Argentina forever, being one of the largest beef export countries in the world. Maybe the largest, to be honest. I don't know, maybe. It's like part of their whole identity with asado and whatnot. Same with Uruguay. I know Uruguay eats more beef than any other country in the world. They like their cow meat, I guess. But that is going to be it for tonight. So what should I call this video? You already know, but I haven't decided. I guess wars in the Americas. American Civil Wars. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Anyway, that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Actually, let's sneak peek at what's next. I don't remember because I'm not reading this book. Oh, that's why I stopped here. Because we're going on to Germany and Italy being created, and I assume the beginnings of World War I. Yeah, the Balkan Wars. The eve of World War. Yep. We're heading into World War I, folks. It's happening. The stepping stones that create World War I. So, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it very much. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And yeah, I hope that you have a good night.